Yo, what's up, homies? All right, so we're going to be doing dungeon video guides. Basically, I did a lot of dungeons on the beta, a ton of M+, and I wanted to bring you guys some, just like some advice, some tips, some tricks, so you guys as well can jump into your dungeons and be successful fairly on in the season. Obviously, strategies aren't like fully fleshed out, but these were pretty meta strategies and kind of things that you should be looking to do or looking to know with the dungeons that come out as they come out in M+. This is going to help you out early season and just kind of learning what's going on. And I hope you guys enjoy. Okie dokie. Next up, we got Ruby Life Pools. So basically, Ruby Life Pools is a dungeon that has, you know, trash that do a large amount of mechanics. And so if you're not like super familiar with a large portion of the mechanics in this dungeon, it can cause you some problems. Now, there are some trash mechanics that matter. There's a lot of trash mechanics that are kind of inconsequential, but there are just a ton of mechanics nonetheless that affect all of the mobs in this dungeon. So this first pull here, I think the only real thing to know... Okay, so there's a couple... there are a couple things to know about this first pull. First off, Tectonic Slam is a cast that needs to be stopped with either a stun, a pair. Okay, we didn't stop it. Hold on, I'll try to explain. So Tectonic Slam, I think it's the Terra Sentry. I'm pretty sure it's the Terra Sentry that casts Tectonic Slam. Regardless, it basically you have to get that either stopped with a knock, a stun, any CC. Otherwise, it does a ridiculous amount of AoE damage to you. And now you see here, we're going to drop all super low because we let it go off. And we do get topped off rather quickly by our Evoker Healer friend. But it's a situation that you need to make sure that you let as few of those go off as possible. Because in that first pull, you have two of them. And if you let both of them go off at the exact same time, you're going to wipe 100% to 0 every single time. Now, you can take this pack a lot slower. I think that this first pull, considering the fact that you have all of your offensive CDs available and all of your tank defensives here, it should be fine. Now, I've seen, if you want some advice, I've seen every single tank die to this first pull trying to get it grouped. They need a lot of healing going into this pack, and if you could like pre-defensive them while they're getting this pack set up, it's going to help them a lot, because this pull is very, very difficult to just get set up well. But yeah, basically, make sure you're CCing the Terra Sentry on the AoE cast. Beyond that, it's just kind of like kicking the Frostbolt cast. It's not that big of a deal. It's like whatever. And then don't summon whelps. And you don't summon whelps by not walking over these eggs here. And so that's kind of the rules of the first pull. Now, the rules of the rest of this is like, the rest of this area is a situation where you can only skip so much trash in this dungeon in general. And I will say that this area is probably one of the most premier places to skip, because, like, for one, the trash in this part of this area, not that great count-wise. On top of that, you're only able to pull so much at once. On top of that, the trash that's at the end of the dungeon is more or less mandatory to either get bosses summoned. Yeah, basically to get bosses summoned. I could leave it at that. And so you need to make sure that you are kicking the ice shield, like that needs to make sure that it's getting kicked in this next pack, and then just stopping the Terra Sentry. And so you see that we're having some problems here, because I mean there's a lot of tank damage here. We pull this big boy. Now I think that the meta has evolved a little bit past pulling this dude. Oh, let me get a full screen in. The meta's evolved a little bit past pulling this dude. You can actually walk across this wall here and just skip him completely without body pulling. I wish I had a video of us doing it, but basically you can just walk across and skip this Juggernaut. He's not efficient. Again, you can only skip so many mobs in this dungeon, and the Juggernaut is one of them that it seems like it's like not super great count to HP wise, and like you can skip it without a shroud. And so just by walking across this lip here, you're able to make sure that he doesn't get pulled. But we do it natty in this group, which is like, it's fine. He's not actually that dangerous. He does a decent amount of tank damage. I guess the big thing for him is like he's just a lot of HP, and there are mobs surrounding him that you don't really want to pull into him either because they're kind of obnoxious. So, yeah, that's the TLDR, like the first section. The first section is like not that bad. There are a lot of tank deaths that happen in the first section. You need to make sure that you get some of the interrupts going on. But like overall, it's not the worst first section. There was a mini boss that I kind of skipped over. He doesn't do shit. Like, honestly, he does like a fire cast that like telegraphs easily, like the steel barrage. Like he spawns fire that you dodge, and then he does a blazing rush, which is don't get hit by the blazing rush. Like yeah, it's just like a frontal that you can see that's telegraphed out of his character. So that one's more or less chill. Now we have the first boss, which so what do you need to know about the first boss? So first and foremost about the first boss is that it phases at 66 and 33%. It'll teleport into the middle of the room and summon whelps. That's probably the first thing that you need to know. And so you want to get this boss pushed as fast as possible. And that's due to this chill storm mechanic. Okay, so first off, hailstorm is what these spikes are from. And so not to talk past this chill storm. So hailstorm, you can just stack up on top of your tank and drop all these hailstorm circles on one spot and then just move around the room as like a unit to make sure that these pillars of ice are stacked. This is going to make it a lot easier for your melee just generally to be able to deal with. The big mechanic on this fight though is chill storm. And so basically this is a circle that goes on to any player, and they go and drop this off after like 5 seconds, and then it sucks you in for a few seconds, dealing pulsing AoE damage, and then after a couple seconds, it explodes, doing a decent amount of AoE and pushes you outwards. And so this is every single time that Chillstorm comes out, you should be looking to pop some form of defensive or like a group-wide external. Like a rally is a great thing here. You know, if you have like an aura mastery from a healer, something like that is really, really good here. We had like Nature's Vigil plus like Rewind as our main solution of that first one. And that was just enough for us to be able to get through it without having to commit like rally and stuff like that. So now we're trying to push the boss before we get the second chill storm. Oh, okay. So it actually spawns at 70, 30. It's not 66, 33, which, you know, it's fine. Whatever. Doesn't really matter too much. Same thing. So we do get the boss push before the second chill storm, which is like, it's something that you want to do. You don't want to be getting 2 chill storms in this phase. And so now we have these whelps spawn. And these are the whelps that we saw earlier on in the dungeon, and they work exactly the same as the whelps that we saw earlier on. I didn't really explain it because I think that now is a great time to explain it. So she summons these whelps, teleports in the middle, and then puts a shield on herself, and then starts pulsing AoE for the duration that the shield is active. Now the whelps here, they cast Cold Claws, which is an interruptible cast. Not all whelps cast Cold Claws. Only some very specific whelps cast Cold Claws, and it's I think that there's a way of telling if you target them, but I don't know the way of. I'm sure that there's a way of like auto marking them, but basically you want to be like stunning and CCing the whelps to not have Cold Claws stacking up on your tank, because at 5 stacks they get stunned, and if they get stunned, you are in deep shit. So basically what the general play is to pop like a couple of 1 minute cooldowns, like 1.5 minute CDs on pull. Okay, apparently it's 8 stacks. You want to pop like 1 to 1.5 minute CDs on pull and save probably like 1 cooldown for this phase, right? You want to save like 1 offensive CD for this phase for them to be able to AoE the whelps, pad on the whelps, and also be able to push the boss shield. The boss shield is honestly the thing that is by far the most dangerous, because the longer that the pulsing AoE goes on for with the Frost Overload, the more dangerous it becomes. You then kick the Frost Overload, and then you're out of the phase. In addition to that, you can dispel the stacks. So it's not the craziest. It's not like these aren't stacks that will stay permanently on the player or on the tank. They can get dispelled off. But at the rate that the whelps apply them, you need to be careful. Like it's a situation that they absolutely can stack up fast on the tank if they're not being either like stunned or CC'd or dealt with appropriately. Like we're using Solar Beam here. And so now we're using our 1 minutes to 1.5 minutes back during the second Frost Overload phase and able to push the boss out of the shield phase as fast as possible. And so this boss is honestly fairly difficult. You need to make sure that you avoid getting as many chill storms as possible. So you see this fight and you see the amount of like AoE damage and you're thinking, oh, this is an AoE fight. This is actually just like a priority damage fight, and pushing the boss is going to be the most important thing, because the Chill Storm is the Chill Storm and the shield that's coming from the intermission for the Frost Overload are the two things that are most likely to kill you here. And then so just making sure that you rotate your defensives during every single Chill Storm, making sure that you also rotate your defensives whenever the boss is in that phase. Those are the things that you should be looking to do to be the most successful as you can be on that guy. We got Thunderhead. I think this is a pre-nerfed version of Thunderhead, so, you know, there's about a 90% chance that we get corpse camped by this guy. First cast he has is Rolling Thunder, or Storm Breath. He has Storm Breath, which is a frontal, which doesn't look like this anymore. It looks a lot better, you know. You can tell, like, if you've done M0s, you can tell that what exactly the Storm Breath looks like now. It's a lot better than this, but the mechanic still stays. And then the second and most important mechanic is Rolling Thunder. And the deal with Rolling Thunder is that it puts out 2 debuffs onto players. Oh my god. Let me slow this down. I may die here. Hold on. I need to actually pause this the moment that the second debuff goes out. All right, paused. Okay, we have 2 debuffs for Rolling Thunder right here. Here's the deal. We're going to insta-dispel this one, right? This debuff is going off immediately. And whenever you dispel it, it does 75% of your group's HP. It really depends on the dungeon level, but it does a large amount of your group's HP. And so you dispel one of them insta. The second one is going to tick this player for a ridiculous amount of your health, and your healer and this person should pop a defensive immediately, right? Whenever they see that it's on them, this should be a defensive on site. And if I don't press my bark skin here, I am literally just trying to die. Like, it is a situation that it is pretty unacceptable if I don't press my bark skin, because I mean, hindsight, we know that the Windwalker is the one who's getting dispelled here. So immediately the dispel goes out. I get dropped to 30% HP. I should be bark skinning this like next hit almost immediately from this dot, because if I don't get like healed fast and the rest of our group doesn't get topped up, we're going to be in a spot where if I die with this buff here, okay, so I renewal plus bark skin even. I pressed a lot of buttons here. If I die with that debuff right there, whenever everybody is not topped, we're going to run into issues. And so the most important thing is you need to know that you have to defensive if you have the debuff and you're not the person who gets dispelled. Honestly, if you're the person, even the person who gets dispelled is probably to find a defensive insta. But the healer needs to know that they need to dispel instantly. And if they don't dispel instantly, they're going to be just in deep shit. Because if you have 2 of them go off at once, you are just absolutely boned. Now, and this is a hot tip for the homies, you can pre-immune these. So yeah, if you can pre-turtle it, you can pre-turtle it, you can pre-cloak it, you can pre-immune it in any variable capacity. So just you can pre-block it as well, pre-bubble, you know, all those immunities you can pre-immune it and not have the debuff go out at all, if it would pick you. Now, this isn't to say that it will you'll always immune it, but if it was going to select you, it will just not select you. And that's you should aggressively look to use your immunities on this guy. This trash, you know, there is basically 3 mobs. Yeah, 3. I think there's 3 mobs in this area, and we can talk loosely about how they work. So first off, there's the Cinder Weaver, which casts Cinder Bolt. It's, I believe, a 2 melee interrupt rotation. It's a lot. You need a lot of kicks for these Cinder Bolts. The Cinder Bolts and the Cinder Weavers are incredibly dangerous. If you have 2 Cinder Bolts going onto one player, they're likely going to die. They're likely going to get 100 zeroed, you know. It's just something that you need to make sure that you are at least getting one of them completely interrupted if you are playing a pack of 2 Cinder Weavers, which this first pack right here is double Cinder Weaver. So we opened up. All right, I forgot about this too. Hold on, let me slow down. So we opened up with a Silent Sigil, which was nice. Now, what we didn't factor in is, in addition to that, the Blazebound Destroyer does this circle onto players, and this circle actually knocks up, by the way, it knocks up enemy targets, which, you know, could be useful to stop casts in some capacity. But if you have the Cinder Bolt going on a player that has this circle on them, especially the moment that it goes off, or actually, I didn't even die to the Cinder Bolt. I actually just died to the circle. I should have defensive to this, is the long and short of it. I should have bared this. The amount of damage that this circle does is actually fairly high. So you need to make sure that you defensive that. Those are from the Blazebound Destroyers. Beyond that, just make sure that you're kicking Cinder Weavers. And so those are two of the mobs that are here. The last mobs are the Flame Dancers, which do this Blaze of Glory cast. Not casters of any kind here, you know. It's they just do this Flame Dance cast, which you can interrupt and stop, which you should be looking to do because it does AoE damage to melee, and so you should be looking to stop it with like some CC. And then whenever they die, they do the Blaze of Glory cast, which you saw a second ago before I rewound it. And yeah, basically they shoot this. They shoot these fire circles out from them. So the Blaze of Glory, like it's kind of difficult to see on my screen here, but the Blaze of Glory has like a circle around these mobs. In addition to that, the Blaze of Glory also has a dead zone. So like this here to here is always going to be safe from these mobs, right? And then from here outwards, is always going to be dangerous, right? And so it's one of those situations that if you're playing as a melee or you're playing in melee, you can actually just stand in the dead zone and you're totally fine. And so you see me, I walk in here. I don't walk all the way into the Flame Dancer because I don't have a death wish, but then you just stand in the dead zone and it's fine to be able to touch them there. This time I will not be fooled twice. I will press spark immediately the moment that I see that Blazebound Destroyer circle that's on me. And again, it knocks up mobs. So I don't necessarily want to like push my way into melee to knock up mobs as a ranged, but if you get this on you and you are a melee, it's you absolutely can just use it to knock up mobs. It's nice to stop casts from these mobs. So I guess I didn't explain why we're killing these packs. So these packs are mandatory. I mentioned that earlier. If you look on the minimap here, like you can kind of see these, like they're marked with like rare icons, the same icons like world rares have. And you need to kill all 4 of the Blazebound Destroyers to summon the second boss, is the TLDR. That's basically the TLDR. That's why these mobs are mandatory that are in this area. There's no unique mobs else to really talk about except for Flame Gullet. And let me talk about him. So he has 2 mechanics, maybe 3 mechanics. I think he has like Iron Jaw or something like that, Flame Jaw, Fire Maw, whatever the hell it is. He has a tank hit, Fire Maw. It puts a dot on your tank. The initial damage from the Fire Maw is by far the most dangerous part of that. He has Flame Breath, which, you know, you just dodge out of the way of. And then at 50% HP, he turns into a Pride, and he starts increasing. Okay, hold on, let me see. You can see the dot. You can see this debuff that's on my screen right here. And so, like, this debuff, as it stacks up, he's going to start doing more and more pulsing AoE, and it caps out at 20 stacks. Similar to Pride, but you're never going to get 20 stacks to this guy. You should be looking to save your offensive CDs for once this guy pushes into 50% HP. If you're looking to do trash for this guy, he is really chill on pull. Like if you have trash in him, if you're doing trash into him after he has 50% HP on this guy, you are wishing for death, and you are going to make your healer absolutely hate you. Now, you can for count purposes, you can either skip one of Thunderhead or Flame Gullet, but you can't realistically skip both because otherwise you're going to be running into issues where you don't have count. The easiest way of generally what I've seen done is people are skipping Flame Gullet because it's easier to skip. Now these mobs are actually very difficult to skip generally, but Flame Gullet flies around in the sky, and so there is a way. Hold on, we're just gonna ignore the fact that we were just dying to some random shit. There is a way of skipping him. Basically, if you pull if he's in the air and you pull like all this trash and you pull it up to here, you are able to skip him, assuming that he's in the air, and you need to make sure that you're like mounted and running fast and whatnot. There is Flame Gullet is the one that you normally skip if you're going to skip one of the dragons. We don't skip in either of them here. I think that that's going to be more consistent with like what most groups expect to see is just playing both of the dragons. But you do have an excess in count, and you are afforded the ability to be able to at least skip one of them. Now, skipping 2 of them, I don't know where you're going to get count from. You would probably have to... Oh, I got Cinder Bolted plus the circle. Now, if you're going to play 2 of them, if you're gonna play 2 dragons, I don't know where you would skip the count from. Like, it's just like those mobs give so much count that it's difficult to skip them. So now we're on to the boss. And this boss actually kind of pain in the ass. It is only 3 mechanics, but the 3 mechanics are incredibly important. I guess it's 2 mechanics, but 2 mechanics plus an ad cast. So Ritual Blaze Binding goes off and it summons an ad. Now it seems like it'll summon ads on ranged players. But that's not like 100% consistent. I think that it may have even changed from beta, but it's at least in early on beta, it would summon ads on ranged players. So you definitely wanted your ranged players to be looking to bait those ads super well. And then it does a Molten Boulder. And this Molten Boulder can go on anybody. And so how you want to do this boss is basically you want to move the boss around the ring. Is how I'm going to describe this. You want to move the boss like around the ring. And so the first ad bait, it's kind of whatever. You want to bait the first boulder away from where you're moving. You want to bait every boulder back from where you came and away from where you're moving to. That's the idea. That's the general idea of how you want to be doing this. And so, in addition to that, you want to be like, once these ads are out, you're hard focusing the ads. There is some amount of cleave that you're going to do. But if you're doing like a difficult key, you're going to have to like full focus the ads. Now on lower level keys, you're probably able to just like 50-50 commit, just kind of cleave them down. But it's a situation that you need to make sure you get an interrupt on the Searing Blaze cast from the ad. And then on top of that, after the ad dies, it does a circle around it, kind of similar to what we saw from the trash. And then after that circle goes off, he summons fire. So now we're looking to bait. I think that this is something that's also easier with like boss mods. We don't have boss mods here, so I don't know what's next. If I had to assume, I think it's going to be Boulder next. And so we want to actually be pressed up here. If I have a just dream bait of the Boulder, everybody's hard stacked here. Now, if I have a dream bait of the ad, we do not want to be here, right? Like under no circumstances do we want to be here. This is for the Boulder. So like this would be the best case scenario for where we bait the Boulder. And like this would be the best case scenario for where we bait the ad. And so depending on what timers would say, that's where we would go next. Is like, I think that like where the healer, the Preservation Evoker and myself here are baiting either the ad or the Boulder is totally fine. And so now that Boulder gets baited, and now we're going to try to bait this ad somewhere in front of the boss, yeah? And then after that happens, once we stack up on like where the ad is going to summon, we're going to bait this Boulder back this direction. I think that I could talk about this for probably like 5 more minutes, but I think that that's pretty much how the fight goes. You want to bait the Boulder back from where you want to bait the ad in front of the boss, not like what we just did here, not like that. And then you want to bait the Boulder away from the ad, pretty much as often as possible. Okay, that's the second boss. Doesn't have too many other mechanics beyond that. Focus down the ad, make sure that you're doing as much damage as possible to it. Now we get into the trash that, also been corpse camped on. I was shocked that we didn't die to Thunderhead, by the way. We got the Tempest Channelers. So first and foremost, the Tempest Channelers are a pain in the ass. They do like a Thunderstorm cast. And they also do... So the Thunderstorm cast is a channel. And then on top of that, they have a Thunderbolt, which is an interrupted ability. Oh, Lightning Storm. Sorry, not Thunderstorm. Lightning Storm. And so the Lightning Storm is a 5-second cast that every single hit hits you to, probably hits you for like 40% of your HP. And if you don't have like defensives or like major personals, health potions, stuff like that, you're going to be in deep shit. I somehow live here with just Renewal. Just Renewal and Nature's Vigil is enough to get me over the line here. But like realistically, if I don't have Bark available for that, like I am actually very, very scared. So you need to make sure that you're coordinating things like dropping a rally, you utilizing like an Aura Mastery, making sure that you use like a Rewind or something like that is totally fine too. Like I guess in our case, we would use a Rewind here to be able to keep us up. And so like, yeah, you need to make sure that you're really defensive and being proactive with your personals on these mobs. On top of that, it does the Lightning Storm pretty frequently. And so this mob, it looks like this is an AoE pack. This is a pack that you are basically hard focusing this Tempest Channeler, and none of the rest of these mobs matter. If you have some form of funnel, that's totally fine. You can funnel onto this mob. Beyond that, you should be single targeting this guy, and you know I'm in bear form with rally up. like these guys do not play in this area, and that's consistent with pretty much every mob in this area. Now we take a second and we're like, all right, no, none of our defensives are available. Let's take this a little bit slower, and we grab these thunderclouds off to the side. You know, they don't really do too much. They like leap on players. It is what it is. And we grab these thunderclouds with the storm warriors again. Non-mobs. We are using this as defensive and offensive cooldown packs to allow our personals and offensive CDs to come back up. The flame channeler is kind of a pain in the ass, but you basically just kick it. He's a pain in the ass if you let the interrupts go off, but if you kick it, it's mostly fine. There's nothing really wrong with that guy. Like especially in like high coordinated groups, you may see teams look to pull that flame channeler with one of the thunder channelers. I don't like that for most use cases because it's just dangerous for very little gain. And so there's no real reason to do that. So now here we have the Tempest Channeler again, and we've allowed our personals to come back up. I don't know what we called that we were using here. Big healing, because I didn't press shit. I just pressed Nature's Vigil. And so I guess this next one is going to be where I'm looking to press defensive or renewal. Oh, maybe we were able to get this lightning storm. Okay, wait a second. And it's like, basically these are the rest of the mobs for the remainder of the dungeon. High Channeler, this thing is a piece of shit. This thing has a lightning storm cast that it casts third global. During M0s, I haven't seen it casted as fast as it did during beta. So be warned, like this may be a situation where it may cast this third global still. During M0s, it didn't look like it was just insta-casting it, but here we had like 2 globals in and it's starting with Lightning Storm, which is very dangerous for some healers, notably like Resto Druid. If Resto Druid doesn't have like your full group pre-hotted here, you are like probably about to die. Now, again, all this trash is basically just defensiving and making sure that you have like good defensive CD rotation. I guess the High Channeler is a little bit different because after every single lightning storm, it puts a shield on itself, and if you don't break the shield, or it's a Tempest Storm shield, and if you don't break the shield, then it'll wipe you, and it just sits there channeling for 8 seconds. So it's a little bit different than the Thunder Callers, but you know, it's most of the same. Okay, so let's talk about the final boss. The final boss, you know, it's, how do I say this? It telegraphs like shit, but fortunately enough, that's mostly a healer issue. Now, so you see that I've put the main dragon on focus. I'm just trying to think about where exactly I want to start here. This boss is a piece of shit, but it's mostly a healer fight. I put this boss on focus. And the reason for that is because every so often the boss does a targeted fire cast. Not this fire breath. This is something completely different. It does a targeted cast that it puts a debuff onto players, right? And the debuff hits so hard, but the big deal with the debuff is that you want to pre-defensive it because the initial application of the debuff in this first phase sucks. Like at least yeah, so, okay, the initial application of the debuff also sucks. And so now you see that I'm also chasing it around as a ranged DPS and hitting it. Okay, so Flame Spit. And you see that the Flame Spit, and this is the reason I have it on focus, is so that I can see that it's on Luigi, yeah? And he ideally would press, like, Spell Reflect. Like, this is what he's probably, like, this what he would ideally press here. Or, at minimum, our healer is going to press something on him and notice that he got the dot. And then he's going to drop these fire puddles from that Flame Spit off to the side. And so that's the most important part of this fight. Now, let's talk about it from like a damage perspective. From a damage perspective, whenever you push the boss to this main guy to 40% HP, he mounts the dragon again. And then he remounts the dragon. And then you are in a spot where you want to be burning the main dragon because he will put Flame Spit on all 5 members. And so you ideally want to get this dragon as low as possible coming into this phase. And the dragon is going to be top priority to kill. In addition to that, you're going to be looking to lust the boss once it gets remounted here. Okay, so look at this. Now we have remounted, and I have the main dragon targeted. We're going to get 5 players worth of Flame Spit. I'm positioned like shit. I'm gonna talk about like optimal positioning, but I am positioned like total shit here. Now, it depends on how long this part of the phase is going to last, how many offensive CDs you have here. But realistically, your best case scenario is all 5 of your players are positioned right here, first and foremost, whenever the boss phases, yeah? And then you move from here across the platform, and you're probably going to get 2 to 3 flame spits, realistically. Probably only 2 for most players. Maybe you're going to get 3 at like a high enough level. And then you want to drop them like this direction. This is because all 5 players are getting it, so you're going to clutter up the room. I'm positioned horribly, and I'm putting this like, I put this off to the side, which is more or less fine, but now the boss does a wind, and it kind of saves us because this area is like turbo clear, but I'm nowhere near our Preservation Evoker either. Like there's a lot going wrong with what I've done here, but TLDR, you want to be like kind of stacked up, and you want to be moving as like a clumped unit. With this Flame Spit cast. On top of that, if you contact any of these Flame Spit puddles, you get a debuff on you. Like you get the dot on you, and if you get the dot on you, your healer and your group is going to hate you, because after a couple seconds you will expire and also summon more fire circles. You'll probably also die. Like that's the root of it, is like you're probably like that's more on you than anything else, but you're likely going to die. And so now you're just focusing down the boss here. It's the boss does have an interrupting shout, which is a pain in the ass to deal with, but that's, you know, not super relevant. The interrupting shout is just like something that, like the interrupting cloudburst cast. You see it right here. It's like, it's part of the fight, but it's not that big of a deal. So now we're able to get through it. We're able to get the boss killed off. And that's more or less most of Ruby life pulls. As I said earlier, trash, a lot of fucking mechanics. I understand if it's like a bit complicated at first, but I would say that the best thing that you can do is just practice the dungeon run it a couple of times, and it'll start to click into gear. Like if you've watched this, you'll be like, oh, okay, so that's what he meant whenever he was like, oh, you need to make sure that you're pre-defensiving this. It's a dungeon that you learn by doing is like a lot of what I would say about this dungeon. In addition to that, I forgot about this. There's a tank debuff that is like a mandatory dispel on this fight. And if you don't dispel it insta as the healer, you're going to start running into issues where your tank is going to die. So make sure that you are aware that if you were playing a healer, or you like have an MD for whatever reason, I don't know why you'd MD it as a DPS, like a Shadow Priest, something like that. But like if you are playing a healer, you need to make sure that you get the tank dispelled insta.